Greetings, loved ones, in the strong name of Jesus, here to give you your word for Wednesday. Today, I want to talk to you about fear. There's a lot to be afraid of right now in this time, and actually even before the pandemic, there was a lot to be afraid of. The list goes on from global all the way down to your own household, and sometimes that's the most fearful thing because it's the most immediate. The disciples approached a fearful encounter as well in John chapter 6, starting in verse 16. When evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into a boat, and started across the sea to Capernaum. It was now dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. The sea became rough because a strong wind was blowing. You know, if you have ever been out to the ocean on a windy day and look out, you can actually see these almost mini waves. Those are actually called whitecaps, and that means that the wind is blowing so hard that it creates miniature waves. And so you have these seasoned fishermen going out into a storm and finding quickly that they're outside of their element. Are you outside of your element right now? Is there a circumstance or a situation where you feel overwhelmed? When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and coming near the boat, and they were frightened. Oftentimes, in the midst of the storm, our response can be fear, rightly so. You know, there's a part of our brain, it's called the amygdala, and in the amygdala, it's that fight or flight that is activated in times of great stress, in times of fear. It calls and propels us to either fight or flee. And so in the midst of this, it's really hard and it's really difficult to see God and Christ in these circumstances. But in verse 20, it says, "But he said to them," Jesus, "It is I, do not be afraid." In the midst of the storm, in the midst of the uncertainty, in the midst of being outside of their element, Jesus said, "It is I, do not be afraid." What is it that you're looking towards? What is the object that you're looking at in the midst of your fear? Is it a fear of man? Is it a fear of circumstances? In the midst of all those things, Jesus says, "It is I, do not be afraid." I want to encourage you to have the confidence today to know that I'm praying with you in the midst of your fear, and know that Jesus ultimately was in the ultimate storm, which was the cross and God's wrath, and he came out with peace and with victory. 21, then they were glad to take him in the boat, and immediately the boat was at the land to which they were going. Look to Jesus. Look to him in the midst of this uncertainty, and remember that it is he who is saying, "It is I, do not be afraid." If you are blessed or encouraged by this, please don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. It goes a long way. Plus, we want to make sure that we reach as far out as possible to spreading the good news of the gospel to a world that desperately needs it. In the meantime, grace and peace be with you, loved ones.